So after the last video where I was looking at the arches on the Evo and I noticed that they'd all been cut all wonky and just not done properly. I don't know why with the Evos they always put these 18-inch wheels on them and they never properly lower or get a decent stance on them. I mean, look at the front on this car. It's got coilovers on it. I need to get my fist in there. I mean, what's that? 3 inches? 3-inch gap? I don't know why they do it with the Evos. They always look like monster trucks. Either put them on 17s if you're going to have an arch gap like that, or put them on 18s and actually lower them. So you can see the back's a little bit lower than the front. So what we're going to do at the minute, we're going to sort out the stance on this car. We're also going to sort out the archwork because the archwork's terrible. As I showed you, if you didn't see the last episode, have a look up in here. So you can see here it's all been cut, but it's been cut really badly, really wonky. You can see up in here like the arch hasn't been finished off. So there's a nasty lip there that the tyre's going to catch on, maybe cut into it. So that's all we've done. I'm going to pull this off as well because it looks like it hasn't been clipped back on properly anyway, so we can get the proper clips because there's clips that go into the back of the arches. And we're going to do it all properly, make sure it's all nice. Going to see, take the coilovers off and check all these brakes over as well because the brakes on this are terrible at the minute. The brakes are going to be completely replaced, but I just want to see if there's anything wrong with the calipers, maybe it needs bleeding or whatever. So we're going to take the coilovers off and jack the wheel right up into the arch and get the proper clearance we need. Drop it down a little bit. The back doesn't need a ton of drop in, but it's quite a nice sort of height, maybe a little bit. But the front, as you can see here, looks terrible. So the front's got to be dropped down, definitely. But the front probably won't need no arch modding. You can see it sits in the arch quite nicely. So that's what we're going to get on with in this episode. Also, there's some bits under the bonnet we're taking off. We're going to remove because it's quarantine. Can't drive the car anyway. So we're going to paint the engine bay in the colours we want. Get rid of that nasty blue. As you see in the videos, that horrible blue pipework and powder coated stuff. It's just got to be changed to black. Going to go for a much subtle engine bay. Just a nice clean look. So just removed the coilover from this side. The whole of the underside of this car has been undersealed, and whoever done it just done an absolutely terrible job because they didn't care about anything. They literally just covered anything and everything in underseal. Just got happy with the spray gun. So you can see like all the coilover, all the threads all nastily gunked up, so I can't even adjust them on the car. So I've took them off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the wheel back on. I'm going to compress the wheel all the way up into the arch and just see what clearance we've got, so it'll be at maximum lift, and then that way I can cut out whatever we need so it's never going to scrub, don't matter how low it is or how hard we corner. So that's what I'm going to get on with now, marking that up. So moving over to this side, you can see that the underseal situation is exactly the same. Literally sprayed it everywhere, even over the exhaust mount rubbers, the exhausts, the whole lot. Just, you know, went really happy with the gun. Normally it's to hide something, so there's probably like surface rust or whatever. These cars weren't really undersealed very well from Japan because they don't suffer from the same salt on the roads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off these brakes just to check any of the pistons ain't seized up, make sure they're all nice and free. Check over the pads, make sure we've got a nice bit of meat on them. This ain't too bad, they ain't got a lip on them, but you know, they've been sitting for a while and need de-rusting. And just generally go over, check all the bushes, everything. Going to pull that coilover off as well and fully compress that wheel up into the arch. The coilover's off of this side now as well. You can see I've just put the wheel on with a couple of wheel nuts now. You can see that this side of the coilover is exactly the same, all gunked up. See where they've just literally sprayed underseal over everything, didn't take any sort of care, not even around the back of the coilover. But I'm going to de-rust all this, get all the grit and everything out the threads because there's no way of being able to unlock these at the minute. Got to grease all them lot up, make sure that they are nice and free moving, make sure they can be adjusted. So I've just put the jack underneath the wheel and I'm going to pull it right up into the arch now, mark it out, see what needs cutting so that we get no scrubbage even if we drop the rear a little bit. Right, so the wheel's fully compressed up in the arch now. Now on this side there is actually clearance, but it's just the way they've done it. Look how terrible that this cutting is. I mean, Jesus, I don't know if someone had Parkinson's or whatever that was doing it. You can see like that's the plastic cover, the trim that goes over the top. It's obviously been broken, but that didn't need to be cut nowhere near that. It was the metal arch that's behind it needs to be cut, and you can see here this is where it's going to touch the wheel, where it hasn't been cut properly here, and that's going to end up puncturing the sidewall. So that's got to be sorted out. But there's clearance along here I'm going to pull off this plastic cover and see what's going on underneath there. That's the trim removed, and see all the grime and dust and nastiness that gets stuck behind this. So that's a perfect time to clean that up, get a bit of wax on the back there as well. You can see that they had stuck this on because all the clips and everything had broke. So we're going to get some new clips and that for it for when that goes on. Probably going to have to get a new trim. So if anyone's got a new bit of trim, this section here, because it's been cut up so badly that I'm never going to be able to make it look good. The actual metal itself, I'll just give it a little smooth down and it's actually going to be alright. But the actual trim itself's been chewed up so badly. So this is the trim piece, and therethere's absolutely no way of salvaging that. You can see how badly it's been cut, really, really bad. It's not even been done with a flap disc, just a plain disc, 1mm disc grinder. You can see, not been done at all. Whoever's done it has had no experience at all of doing this sort of stuff. So if anyone's got this section here, it's for the passenger side, hit me up, because an uncut piece, or at least a piece that hasn't been trimmed up this badly and replaced, and I'm just going to get some new clips and put that on, so it ain't glued on. It's just going to end up falling off anyway. So we've got to get to cleaning up this shock now before we can get it adjusted. You can see it's full of grit and grime or whatever because it's got the understeel stuck in it. I'm going to clean up these springs as well, give them a lick of paint so they're not so rusty. You can see on the proper shocks and the proper coilovers that the spring gets locked up in a set position of preload, and then you adjust the height on the base, on the body itself. So you can see you lock off that and you adjust it with this thread. This never gets touched, because on the cheaper coilovers, when you are lowering a car, what happens is you compress this spring more and more, so there's no dampening process going on, and then the ride is so harsh and stiff. It's unbearable. So what you normally do is you have a set spring rate in the top spring. This hasn't got no helper spring in it, so it don't rattle around. That's because it's got a preload on it. And then you can see all you do is you adjust the height here. So I'm gonna measure what the height is between here and here, and then drop it whatever I need to drop it. So the car's still got no coilover in it, and all I've done is I put a jack on the diff, and I've got both wheels with no coilovers in it, and I'm just messing around with what sort of ride height that I want it to set at. I've just got the coilover here on the bench ready for disassembly. So what I'm going to do first is, I don't know if this car's ever been corner weighted in the past, so what I mean by that is you transfer the weight from one side of the car to the other with a preload of the springs and the shocks or whatever. Sometimes that means that this gap here between the body and the spring retainer itself will be different. So let's just say on one side it might be 10mm out because I've transferred the weight to the other side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure the gap and the preload and everything before taking it all apart and clean these springs up, clean the body up, because that's really important. You can see all the grit and the grime that's got in between here and how easy it's going to be to clean off. On these, the actual bodies themselves are aluminium, and they're not actually that strong. You can tell they don't take a lot of brute force on the rear arms on these. So going to get these springs off as well, get the crustiness off them, give them a quick lick of paint, because when they start to go really rusty and start corroding, they lose their spring rates a little bit. So going to strip these coilovers down, and they'll be really looking a lot more fresher when they go back on. So that's the coilover completely stripped down. I've cleaned up the body already, you can see, ready to give it like a proper brake clean and a bit of lick of paint. I just checked over, took all the dust seals off. I've checked that there's no scratches or anything in this, no damage to any of the seals, there's no leakage or anything, so this shock body's ready to go again. All I've got to do is clean this up, clean the spring up, give it a lick of paint, get all the under seal and everything off of this coilover because it's absolutely disgusting. And then I can start rebuilding this back up, grease it all up so it's nice and loose. I've just freed off this locking nut at the bottom, that took a little bit of doing, and now that's fully adjustable again while I can do it on the car, so it won't be locked up. Clean up the dust seal, get this thing back together. Right, so that's one coilover all torn down and repainted. You can see though, looks a lot fresher than it did. Now on this section here, I didn't even have to paint it, so what I've done is got some brake cleaner and a cloth, and I managed to get all this nasty tar off. So this is obviously that understeel that you see underneath the car. It's covered everything, but a bit of brake cleaner and a cloth and a bit of hard work, and it comes up as mint as that. So I didn't even need to paint them ones, luckily. Painted the springs up because they was obviously a bit corroded, so you can see the difference there between the springs, so that will stop the rust for a little while longer. Cleaned all the seals, the dust covers up, and even cleaned the top mount because this top mount and underseal all over it as well. So we're about to put this back together now and get this one stripped down and do the same with that. So that's one fully rebuilt up, and that's one to do. So you can see just a little bit of hard work, you know. I ain't even done that much time on this. Just a lick of paint, cleaned up the bodies, cleaned up the top, you know, put some paint on the springs. And they look not like brand new, but, you know, good second hand. A lot better than they did when they come off the car, and they'll last a lot longer. Now, the main part about it was to free up these, obviously, adjusters, so that I can actually adjust the height of the car on the car, whereas these at the minute are all locked up. So that was the main purpose of it, but when they're off, you give them a lick of paint, make them look a lot better for when they go back on. You can see here how gunked up they get with all the grit and salts and everything gets in between this section here, and when you clean them out, they're nice and free to move again. So it's well worth doing. Allows you to adjust them on the car. Once they start seizing up, they're never going to come apart again. So you can see here that the body is covered in that nasty tar stuff. So what I've been using is a bit of brake cleaner, and I let it soak into the tar. It is really nasty stuff to remove. It stays like a sticky all the time. It's like I've got wax oil in it, you can see, and all the grit and everything gets in it, and it actually does more harm than good. So if you think that's undersealing your car, it really ain't. So don't bother getting this done, especially on any JDM car. Do it properly, epoxy primer, you know, stone chip it, because they ain't protected from the factory. So going to get to getting this cleaned up now. It's going to take a little while to do. Just going to let it soak and get that wiped down, and I won't even need to paint it because it's still got the anodized coating that's undamaged underneath. God, this top, man, is taking ages to get this stuff off. So you can see absolutely caked in it, a really thick goo. So basically I'm just using this brake cleaner, just letting it soak into it. You can see, so it turns it into like a sort of gel. Let's focus in, and then all I'm doing is just using a heavy duty rag and just literally wiping it off, because if I used anything else, even brass, it's just going to take the anodized coating off, which is not what you want. But you can see underneath it, it's pretty much like new, so there's no point messing around. Well, there you go, that's both coilovers all refurbished and ready to go back on the car. So I've just reset them up at exactly 10mm drop on each side, as opposed to what it was before. There was 136 on one shock, 132 on the other, and I've gone for 122 and 126. I'm assuming that this has been corner weighted in the past, which is why they're uneven. I won't know until they're on the car. It could have just been the same with most of this car, that they was just put on together incorrectly or different wrong heights, whatever. So when I put them on the car, I'll double check that, and hopefully we can get a nice ride height. But they've come out a lot better than they was, as you see. A little bit of hard work, a little bit of cleaning and some paint, and you can see, look, them almost like new again. One thing I did notice when I was driving it last though is that they was a little bit soft, these shocks. I've just checked and they was on like almost their softest setting, but also it can be down to spring rates as well. So I'm going to stiffen them up a little bit. If that doesn't cure it, then we'll go to a little bit uprated spring setup on there, just a little bit stiffer. Right, so there we go. The coilovers are all back on the car. The arches have all been cut and everything, so the coilovers are looking fresh. Just about to lock up this locking ring on the bottom of the body. Can't wait to get rid of all that sealer. So this is going to be done in the winter. The whole body underneath here is going to be stripped back, because this is obviously just hiding stuff, you know. They've just pasted that over everything, like even the exhaust rubbers, the whole lot. So they've probably seen some surface rust under here, just put some under seal on it to sell the car on. That's normally what people do. They think they're clever, but it's really not. So this will all be stripped down. This car will be put on a rotisserie, but that's going to be done in the winter. So let's lock these up now, get the wheels on, get the car back on the ground, and see what the stance is like. So now I've moved on to the front. So I've just had these shocks, coilovers off, and I managed to loosen this bottom retaining lug, and I cannot move this one for hell. And I've literally smashed this. This is a metal collar at the bottom, and this is for locking the body up, and I've been smashing and smashing on it. So I've bent the actual chisel that I use. I've lubed it up, I've heated it up, I've just done everything you could possibly do to try and get this free, to try and lower the front a little bit. It's just not happening at all. So what I'm going to do is just going to get new coilovers in for it, because they look a bit tired anyway. They're not leaking. The dust covers are split, you can see here. The springs are obviously rusty or whatever, but you see the bodies, I mean, they've been on there a while, and this is what happens when you don't maintain coilovers. You can't just fit and forget them like McPherson's, where you can just obviously replace them, whatever. With a coilover, you have to keep it clean, keep it lubed up, make sure these are always free, because once they get seized like this, they're never ever coming back. Just dropped the Evo down on the floor, and you can see the rear of it now is exactly how I wanted it. It's not too low, not too high. You can see great stance on it now. The front, I cannot unseize them coilovers, so we're going to have to do something about them. Driving me mad, the front of that car really has to come down. If you look at it from the side, you can see, obviously it hasn't settled yet, because when I've dropped it down, you can see it's got negative camber on the front, but got to get to cleaning up this boot because when the number plate's off, someone's put this nasty plastic or gel or whatever it is on the back of the boot, and you can see the fuel as well from where the car overfuels. Obviously this car's running a Link ECU, so it's not really set up very well for cold start. Whoever mapped it just mapped it for obviously full boost, which is most of the mappers do. Don't worry about cold start, don't worry about cold start fueling, and it's just really rich. Got to get rid of these badges off the back as well, because it's just making it look tacky, proper JDM tackiness that you always get. Just go back to the original, get rid of this HKS and Rally Art sticker, GSR 600R, and just be left with the original Mitsubishi badges on the back, so it's nice and clean, nice and fresh. That's where it's nice on the white cars. You can make them look really good. So you can see there, that's the rear, exactly how I want it. Just need to drop that front so we've got some rake on it, and then it'd be sorted on the stance side of things, and then we can move on to other parts. Right, so let's have some comments in the comments section on the opinion of how this car looks. So obviously we've got the carbon bonnet on there. I think that needs to go. Obviously you're going to keep aero catches in there because these bonnet catches on these cars are terrible, so we're going to get rid of this carbon bonnet. If not, I was going to thinking of actually painting it, but carbon bonnets, fiberglass bonnets, they're not dead straight, they never are. You can see they're kind of ripply, a little bit wavy, so even when this is painted it's actually going to look terrible. So it's better to just go back to a stock bonnet, I think. Stock bonnets look a lot better anyway. Maybe use this one for track, whatever. These wheels are going, they're too big, 18s. Too big. These are rotors, so they'll be going in the future and be dropping back down to 17s. What about the Ganador wing mirrors? So I think they're going to stay because I actually like them. They you can actually see out of them, as opposed to a lot of wing mirrors that you can't really see out of the aftermarket ones. But these have been built properly, and as everyone knows, these are really expensive. But they're in black, so I think they're going to be painted white. When they're painted white, I think they're going to look really good. The wind deflectors, they look good as well. Other than that, I think it looks alright. Smoked headlights, you know, that's alright, I suppose. Does look alright. I think it's about going for the fresh look at the minute. So you've got the fog covers on there. Just tidy it up a little bit. Get rid of that grill badge, so that looks a lot fresher on there now. So we've just got a stock grill on there. Took the grill out from the intercooler. So the intercooler was obviously a black intercooler, so that looks tasty as well. So what else would you do to the car if it was your car? What mods would you do? Let me know in the comments section.